RMS Titanic, 1912. The Unsinkable Ship. Long before the voyage, its story began in the shipyards of Belfast, Ireland, where construction started on March 31, 1909, inside the massive Harland and Wolff yard, and over the next 3 years it slowly transformed into something the world had never seen before. A ship that represented human ambition, engineering brilliance, and unmatched luxury. By the time it was completed in 1912, it was more than just a vessel. It was a statement, part of the Olympic-class liners and designed to be the largest and most luxurious passenger ship ever built, stretching over 882 feet in length and towering above the water, weighing more than 46,000 tons. A floating city built at the cost of $7.5 million, a symbol of confidence in modern technology and the belief that mankind had finally mastered the sea. Inside, the ship was carefully structured across multiple decks, with the lower levels housing the engines, boilers, and machinery that powered the giant vessel across the Atlantic, where hundreds of workers labored in intense heat to keep everything running smoothly, while above them were the passenger decks divided into first, second, and third class. Even second class offered a level of comfort that rivaled first class on other ships, while first-class passengers experienced something closer to a luxury hotel, with a grand staircase illuminated by a glass dome, elegant dining halls filled with fine china and polished silver, a gymnasium, reading rooms, Turkish baths, a swimming pool, and even a squash court, all designed to create an atmosphere of comfort and prestige as over 2,200 passengers from vastly different backgrounds traveled together, from millionaires and celebrities enjoying the height of luxury to immigrants carrying everything they owned in hopes of starting a new life in America. Despite all its grandeur, there was a critical weakness that few paid attention to at the time. Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for about half the people on board, yet this still met the legal requirements of the era, as lifeboats were never intended to hold everyone, only to transfer passengers to nearby rescue ships in the event of an emergency. The White Star Line chose not to overcrowd the decks with more boats, prioritizing space and appearance, while confidence in the ship's design only strengthened this decision, as Titanic was widely believed to be unsinkable due to its 16 watertight compartments, a system thought capable of keeping the ship afloat even if several sections were flooded. A belief repeated so often that it became accepted as fact by both passengers and crew. On the morning of April 10, 1912, Titanic began its maiden voyage from Southampton, England, under the command of Captain Edward Smith, a highly experienced captain nearing retirement, with large crowds gathering to witness the departure of what many believed was the greatest ship ever built. Families waved from the docks, passengers leaned over the railings, and as the ship slowly pulled away, few could have imagined that this journey would become one of the most famous disasters in history. After stopping at Cherbourg in France and Queenstown in Ireland to pick up more passengers, the ship set course for New York City, heading out into the vast and unpredictable North Atlantic. For several days, the journey went smoothly, the sea remained calm, and life on board followed a routine of meals, conversations, music, and relaxation. But by April 14th, warnings began arriving from other ships about icebergs drifting along Titanic's route, and although the course was slightly adjusted, the ship continued moving at high speed, which was standard practice at the time and rarely questioned. As night fell, conditions became increasingly dangerous. The temperature dropped below freezing. The ocean grew unusually calm and still, and there was no moonlight to illuminate the water, making it extremely difficult to spot icebergs as they blended almost perfectly into the darkness. At 11:40 p.m., everything changed. High in the crow's nest, Lookout Frederick Fleet spotted a dark shape directly ahead, an iceberg, and without binoculars he relied on his eyesight as he rang the warning bell and called the bridge, shouting "Iceberg right ahead." The officers reacted immediately and ordered the ship to turn, while the engines were reversed in an attempt to slow down, but the Titanic was simply too large to maneuver quickly enough, and within seconds the iceberg scraped along the side of the ship, tearing open multiple sections of the hull below the waterline, allowing icy seawater to rush in. At first, the impact seemed minor. Many passengers barely noticed anything at all. Some felt only a slight vibration. Others continued their conversations without concern. But below the surface, the damage was severe, as seawater began flooding into 6 of the watertight compartments, exceeding what the ship was designed to handle. When Captain Smith and ship designer Thomas Andrews inspected the damage, they quickly realized the truth. The ship could not survive, and Titanic would sink, not immediately, but slowly and inevitably over the next few hours. Just after midnight, distress signals were sent out into the darkness, and passengers were ordered to begin boarding lifeboats, with women and children given priority. But confusion spread quickly. Many people did not fully understand the danger, and some were reluctant to leave the warmth and apparent safety of the ship. As a result, the first lifeboats were launched only partially filled, with empty seats that would later mean the difference between life and death, while different officers interpreted the evacuation orders in different ways, adding to the disorganization. By around 1 a.m., the bow of the ship had begun to sink beneath the water as flooding continued faster than it could be controlled, and the tilt of the deck became more noticeable, the stern slowly rising into the air as the front of the ship was pulled downward. Panic began to spread as lifeboats became scarce. Some passengers fought desperately for a place, while others chose to stay behind, whether out of fear, honor, or the hope that rescue would arrive in time, and distress flares were launched into the sky, briefly lighting up the darkness in signals of desperation. At 2:05 a.m., the final lifeboat was lowered, leaving more than 1,500 people still on board. As the deck tilted sharply and chaos took over, people slipping, clinging to railings, or jumping into the freezing ocean below. Around 2:17 a.m., the immense stress on the ship became too much and Titanic broke apart, the bow sinking rapidly into the depths, while the stern remained above the water for a few final moments before crashing back down. And within minutes, the ship disappeared completely beneath the ocean. In the icy waters of the Atlantic, survival was nearly impossible. The temperature was so low that hypothermia set in within minutes, and although hundreds of people entered the water, only a very small number would survive long enough to be rescued. Some lifeboats returned cautiously to search for survivors, but in the darkness and freezing conditions, only a handful were found alive. At 4:10 a.m., the Carpathia finally arrived at the scene after racing through the night and began rescuing the survivors who had managed to escape in the lifeboats, pulling them aboard one by one, offering blankets, warmth, and safety. Out of more than 2,200 people on board the Titanic, only 705 survived, while over 1,500 lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history, and a tragedy that would lead to major changes in maritime safety laws, ensuring that ships would never again be so unprepared for such a disaster.